Hi, Catherine. I appreciate you making time to chat with me today. I truly value that you are open to sharing your thoughts and experiences. It is important to remember that the purpose of this interview is to gain a deeper understanding of the impact of social and cultural expectations on the mental well being of college students. Your perspective will be extremely helpful in delving into this subject. This interview is expected to last approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and you are welcome to take a break or end it if you are not comfortable at any point. I would like to record this conversation slash take notes while we talk, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
This will assist me in ensuring I accurately capture all details and concentrate on actively listening to you. Does that meet your approval?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks once more. Let's begin now. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, Catherine.
All right. So my name is Catherine Fulcher. I was born in Slidell, Louisiana, just outside of New Orleans, and I moved to Los Angeles when I was 10 years old. I'm a literature major currently in my third year at UCSD. And I guess other than that, other kind of important defining things is I'm a white American. And so that's the kind of viewpoint that I'm coming from right now.
Nice. How would you rate your overall mental health right now?
Like on a scale,
Yes, on a scale.
I would say probably like out of 10, I would say maybe like 7.
A 7?
Yeah. Um, I feel like to give more insight into why I'm a 7 right now, I feel like it's a hard question for me to answer because I feel like mental health is such a fluctuating thing. But for the most part, I feel like I'm overall like a very positive person. And from a young age, just from dealing with grief and a lot of hardships when I was younger, I feel like I'm more able to support myself uh in mental health pursuits. So I feel like I don't really need as many people, if that makes sense, to like or need as many things to like define how I feel emotionally.
Okay, okay. Now with that being said, even though you don't feel like you need that like support and whatnot, when there is a situation that comes up, do you feel supported by your family and friends for your mental health?
Honestly, I feel like I would be supported by them, but I never really reach out to them. I feel like if something like really tremendous happened, I would be supported by my friends, as opposed to like teachers or something like that. Um, but not necessarily like family, I don't think, because I'm not that close with them.
Now, how often do you compare your academics with others on social media?
I wouldn't say that often, primarily because I feel like a lot of the social media content I consume is like a bunch of brain rot. And I don't know if like whoever's listening to this knows what like brain rot is, but I feel like it's a lot of content where it's like you're just able to like turn off your brain. And I really try to avoid spheres like LinkedIn, where I think academics plays like a huge role, just because I feel like those circles I'm aware are like very fake, and they're
Yes.
very like they're prone to like I mean, just from like my experience, I feel like they're just very prone to like bragging and not being like honest with like what they want to learn about. So I try not to compare myself to anybody on that platform, you know.
No, yeah, that's totally understandable. Um, Now, in regards to that, do you feel like your academic performance impacts how others perceive you?
1,000 100 billion gazillion %. Um, I feel like it really impacts how people perceive you because I mean education is always impacts how people
Yes.
see you. I mean, when you're walking down the street, you immediately get judged for all discernible amounts of like qualities. I mean, there's implicit racism, like depending on like your race, there's sexism, there's a bunch of isms that you can
Yes.
describe on. But I feel like in an academic setting, your performance 100% defines that stuff because I'm a person who likes to speak up a lot in certain classes, and I feel like it does reach out to teachers more, who are able to notice you and I guess be able to like talk or consult with you like outside of classes. And then when it comes to like your peer percentage, I've heard a lot of people say that because I talk so much in class, like they think like I am a smart person or that they could like come to
Oh,
me
yeah, yeah.
for something of that regard. But also like I mean, you can't get past like I feel like it's a thing on like every job interview where they're like, "Oh my God, you went to like Harvard or you went to this like prestigious school." Like that stuff, even though you don't want it to matter, it does matter even for like a split of a moment
Yeah.
conversation.
And like, I feel like people, when you say Harvard and whatnot, we've grown up with this ideal saying that like
Mm.
Harvard, Yale,
Yeah,
Stanford
yeah,
is
all the
like such
Ivies.
like a good school and it's like such a hard school to get into that like people have these expectations that like when they hear that you went to those schools, they're like, oh my God, like this
Yeah.
person is like so good or like
Yeah,
so
yeah,
smart and
yeah, yeah.
whatnot, you know?
And I mean, it even varies. Like, I mean, it's such a stratosphere because obviously everybody, I think, or a lot of people dog on like community colleges who don't have like enough experiences in that realm. And obviously the Ivy Leagues have the high like prestige, but because I'm in a UC school, I feel like it's even compared within like the stratospheres of that. And you know what? Actually, I think going back to your social media question from last time, now that I am thinking about it, maybe I kind of do compare my academics to other people because I have a group of close friends that I went to middle school with, and we've just kept up since. And we all go to different UCs. One of them goes to UC Berkeley, another one goes to UCLA, and then I
Okay.
go to UCSC. And obviously, they're all very good schools, but
Mm-hmm.
Berkeley and
Yes.
UCLA are known to be like the high
Yes.
of the
Like
high,
the
the mighty of
second
the
of like
mighty.
Harvard and Stanford and Yale and
Exactly.
whatnot. Uh-huh.
And I feel like even though I don't like actively think about it 24/7 or like it doesn't really consume my thoughts, I feel like I don't really talk with them as much, but when I do see them like posting or like interacting with me over like direct message and they're talking about like their not their high class, but they'll show me like a math assignment they're doing, I feel like I'm immediately like, oh,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
like I'm like they're doing something that's that I think as is being told by society has inherently more value than what I do as a literature major. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that just speaks to a more profound issue with like the cluster between like humanities and STEM fields.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges college students face when it comes to balancing expectations and mental health?
Mm. I think for the expectations, it's very much a cultural thing. I mean, I know people like some people whose parents like don't want them to attend or don't or have no pressure on them attending university while others like it's very like you need it.
Yeah.
Um and I feel like personally for me because my parents were so removed from my life by extenuating circumstances that I more so felt I put that pressure on myself implicitly. Um just because I was very tethered to the idea that going to college means that you are going to be successful as a person. It will like land you a
Mm-hmm.
job. Things that, my parents didn't do because I'm technically in like a weird roundabout way like a first generation like college student.
Okay.
So I feel like that expectation keeps me driven and I think makes my mental health a bit better because I'm able to say like, hey, I am very profoundly lucky to be in the position that I am
Yeah.
to make the most of it. However, I think parental expectations have that dual sword because I mean I'm removed from that, but one of my close friends, I think we talked about it like before, like a long time ago. Um well, we were just like working together, but my friend, she's a first generation because her parents are from Mexico, and I see her mental health struggling quite a bit, primarily because she doesn't have the facility to pursue what she wants to pursue.
Okay.
And so it makes her, and then I think by extension me feel very like upset with our schooling and just the system in general.
So how would you describe the role that family, friends, and your cultural background play in shaping your experience as a college student?
I think like the perceptions like we were talking about earlier 100%
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes.
those factors the role that your family friends and your background play is pivotal.
Yes.
Some people are right out of the gate. I think especially richer kids. Um,
Now, who would you like consider richer
richer.
kids? Because there are, I guess you can define the richer as like different meanings. So what is your
Yeah.
definition of like richer
I
kids?
think when I say richer kids, I'm talking like financially sound kids. I mean, I'm from a when I was talking a bit about my background, I'm from I was talking about my parents aren't really removed, and I think to define that a little bit more, my dad died when I was 10 years old, and then my mom since 2020 has been paralyzed from a stroke. Oh no, I feel everybody gets like really like torn up about that, but I've made my peace with it, and you know it's a lot, but I've never really had like financial support. So I mean I learned this really fun fact, and I use it and abuse it in all of my college essays. But it's like the whole Middle Ages, like the Dark Ages and like our
Mm-hmm.
history. It's called the Dark Ages because we gave up the pursuit of art and literature and humanities because we were just trying to survive. You know,
Yeah.
it was like people trying to make ends meet. And I feel like my financial situation for the majority of my life is like making ends meet, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like living not necessarily like paycheck to paycheck, but being in those like tough positions where you can't have fun, you don't go on
Yeah.
vacation, you don't do this or that. Um, Whereas when I think of the richer kids, I think of those are the kids who have done a European vacation and who have
Uh-huh.
who I wouldn't say have a silver spoon because everybody suffers to like their own degree. But it is I think it's more so those students who don't understand how hard it is to get through college when it's just yourself supporting. And I feel like
Yes.
those kids, tying it back to your initial question, um, they're kind of taught like college things from a young age of like, you know, if your parents have gone to college, you're going to be able to navigate it better because you already know sort of like the financial systems like FAFSA like leading into it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing it for the first time and if you're having a hard time making ends meet, I mean personally for me when I looked at the FAFSA forms for the first time I was like like nail biting, you know,
Yeah.
like just stressed out and I feel like I often I put off a lot of my um I put off a lot of my sorry, the we're in our workspace right now. But I was trying to say is I feel like it often it, they're just able to navigate it better, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have to be afraid of the stuff that I'm necessarily afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And also they have more freedom to be in school and not have to worry about work, you know,
Yeah.
which that's a whole statement in and of itself.
Um, what are some of the ways that you think college environment affects students' mental health overall?
One of the ways I think the college environment affects students' mental health, um, I would say UCSD is known for being like UC socially dead is like the acronym that they give it.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is necessarily true for all colleges, but I think that there is a profound lack in community on campuses. And I feel like a lot of their remedies are like, hey, just join a club. But I don't know about other people, but I personally hate the idea of joining a club because
Why?
I, I hate the like the gathering or like the rallying around like one interest in order to meet other people. Like I feel like I would want the interaction to come like more so like from just sitting next to somebody in class or like bumping into
Understandable.
somebody.
Uh-huh.
And it feels more so like that's their solution to everything is to like make a club
Yeah.
out of
Uh-huh.
that. And so I feel like there's not really a bunch of connection on campus, which I think does result in a very isolating experience because the friend that I was talking about earlier, we both came from high school together. And if it weren't for her, I would probably be very isolated and
Mm-hmm.
extremely like alone. Um like she was as well. And it also comes from environment too because I mean, her parents and everything, they speak Spanish. And we're from a poor neighborhood. And so when we got to the school for the first time, it definitely felt like, hey, like we don't really, we can't get anybody here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're not making the attempt to even get us in the first place. And then also, I hate I have to say I really hate Canvas and the online college. I hate it so much, primarily because it has 24/7 constant access to you. I think that's another like landscape in mental health
Uh-huh.
where you'll be at like a social event or something and there's the meme of like, oh, a Canvas notification pops up.
Yes,
And
I
that,
do agree with that
yeah,
with you.
I feel like that's definitely something that I hate having the constant access to it because I think it just definitely it removes the work like life balance that I'm searching for, you know?
And it also kind of like if you're out in like an event or something, or you're hanging out with friends, and
Oh
then you see
yeah.
that notification, you're just like, "Ooh, I want to check this," you know, and then it's like it's
Yeah.
not a good score that you wanted to get, so it kind of just
Yeah.
like ends up ruining the mood.
But you know what? It also like I was talking to this, but I think that it's not even just the notification that pops up, but for me, it's like it's the constant. It's on every device that I own, you know.
Yes.
So when I am like sitting on a train somewhere or like just doing something like out in the park trying to have a good day, even if there's no notification, I will go onto Canvas like actively like searching and like looking for the next thing to do because I feel like that's the expectation for a lot of students is to be like over prepared to have all of their readings done like 3 weeks before to come
Yeah.
in. And I mean that's the expectation that I personally set for myself, or at least I try to. But that stress is like so extenuating because it feels like there's never a moment for me to rest. And I imagine like the olden in the olden days when you were turning
Yeah.
in like just papers where you would know like the week before, like, hey, I'm gonna have this college paper due. Um, but the teachers, like, nobody would be able to access you
Mhm.
as pervasive as they are now, you know.
Mhm. And like what you mentioned earlier, how you said that schools they come up with clubs and whatnot, but what if like you are not the type of person to just like go out and talk to people who are sitting next to you in class and whatnot? I think that it might be
Mm.
a good way for them to actually go out and actually find people who have like the same interests as them,
Mm.
right? Or is that
Yeah.
still
I feel like it's it is still a good way. I don't say that like clubs should be eradicated because obviously clubs come from like wanting to have like a shared experience over like a niche topic.
yeah.
But I feel like the problem with clubs is more so is that there are no relationships that can evolve past that niche interest.
Okay,
Really.
yeah.
Because I mean, obviously, like you can get to know somebody in the club and then like start hanging out with them if you drive with them as a person. But I find a lot of my experience is that when you go to that club, that's what that club becomes. That's what those people in that circle become. It's like those are my surf friends.
Yeah.
Those
Okay,
are the
that's
friends that you can only
understandable.
do a certain thing with, and they're not somebody who is this like varied person that you want to keep around in your day-to-day life, you know? Like it's hard because I mean they definitely should exist, but I'm so tired because now they just got the most random. I would say pardon my French because I really feel this one. Fucking they got the most a fuck ass clubs where it's like it's the most
No,
niche thing you
yes.
ever seen. It's like
Uh-huh.
my like fans of dog with long hair
Yeah.
lovers, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see that. Like I would rather much prefer the the
Like a robotics club or
I
like
mean, like
something like that.
something like that, but also like I was saying earlier, like the just being able and like willing to communicate with your peers, and not just communicate, but to follow up that communication. Because a lot of the times plans will be made in person. Minute you follow up online, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sick today.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go walk my fish. Like it's like a bunch of it's excuses like that, which
Yeah.
I think isn't really necessarily like a college thing, but it's more so like a social environment that was formed by the use of phones and technology. I feel like a boomer when I say these things. It's like it's that damn phone, you know?
One thing that you mentioned that stood out to me was how when you go to a club, like that's like literally the only thing that like they talk about. It kind of
Mhm.
just reminds me of like work, you know, like you go to work,
Oh
you
my God,
talk to
yeah.
them, and then after that you see them
Yeah.
and then you clock out, you know, and then you repeat that cycle, you know, unless like what you said, you get close with them and like you hang out with them outside of work. It
Yeah.
just kind of reminded me of that like scenario
But see,
that
I feel like that's also hard too, because it's I feel like I'm ragging on it so much, but I do actively participate in that, where it's like I just want this person to just be a school friend, or like I just want this person to be like
Yeah.
a work friend. Like I don't, because I feel like there's like a sphere that I put around myself personally where it's like I don't want anybody to enter the bubble, because I feel like I do have a very solid group of like close friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm open to like expanding it, but I feel like, especially because I mean we're both so young, there's this fear of influence and a definite fear of like growing older and growing away from like the people who you love and nurture.
New. Yeah.
And I feel like changing as a person feels almost like a betrayal to them, because it's like you want to be able to stay the same person that you were, so you can keep having like the fun conversation that you have. But I feel like that's I mean, that's disingenuous, because I mean, all of friendship is about changing, and they'll accept you for
Yes.
that change, but because we're all going through it at the same time, it's like we're all painful and scared and
Yes.
afraid, and it's hard to overcome that challenge.
Mm-hmm. What are your biggest hopes and goals for yourself as a student and beyond? Um, how do you feel these are influenced by social and cultural expectations?
Hmm. Well, as I was saying earlier, a bunch of my college or like school oriented goals come from my parents. Because to be a writer, you don't necessarily have to get like an illustrious college degree. I mean, screenwriters, you can pretty much like go straight out of school into like the craft, which I'm aiming to do screenwriting and novel writing and a bunch of other kinds of arts. I wouldn't say right now that I have a set idea on what I want my career to look like, because I'm still figuring it out. Um, but I feel like that there's the social and cultural expectation right now of like I do need to have it figured out. And I think that's a common sentiment among like most people. So I'm not like pushing boundaries by saying that or
Yeah.
anything. But I mean, for example, like in one of my classes right now with a professor who I personally don't really care for, they they want us to write a personal statement to get into grad school. And like I have no intentions
Interesting.
of
Uh-huh.
going into grad school. And so when I write the personal statement, I'm kind of like faking where they want me to be. And
Yeah.
even with my distant relatives who I sometimes see, instead of just saying like, "Hey, I want to become an author and like be a struggling artist for like 5, 6 years or however long I want to be
Yeah.
it for," I instead say, "Hey, I'm in school beforehand to become a lawyer," because literature is a big major before becoming like a legal person. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
just say that to kind of get it off the back. But my personal goal is to just, as opposed to being in any set career, just be happy for myself.
Oh, a hundred
Um,
percent.
but I feel like social media makes that really difficult. Primarily because there's like the whole thing of like, you want to portray like the best life you could ever live on a
Yes.
social platform.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that the social media aspect doesn't just affect the happiness level, but the looks thing, which I think if there's anything that does very negatively affect my mental health, it's probably that, I would
The
say.
looks.
The looks thing. That's probably the biggest thing with social media. So when I say get happy with like where I am, it's like be satisfied with like my career and like being able to enjoy my art. And
Mm-hmm.
then also to like be able to like look at myself in the mirror, which I feel like I've been able to do better in recent years, but to be able to say like hey, this is like a body that loves and nourishes you, and like you love and you've experienced so much life, and it's like don't compare yourself to like some Photoshop like
Yeah.
photo of Tyra Banks. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's really easier said than done.
Oh, of
It
course, yeah.
it's like I don't know how else to say it, but I mean, for me too, like I feel like I'm always comparing myself
Oh,
or people
100,
on social media,
1000%.
and it sucks, and it really does take a toll on your mental health. But like what you said, like as long
Yeah.
as you're happy and you know what you are doing, you know your goals, you know what you want to do in the future, like that's
Yeah.
all that really matters. And I saw this quote too, and it says like
Hmm.
something about like doing everything in silence and
Oh,
then like
yeah.
one day maybe like showing up and being like, look, like I'm on top of the world,
Yeah.
like
But see, I feel like
something like
I feel
that.
like that's a revenge fantasy though, which I think
It's
is what
okay,
I
yeah,
I
if you put it
struggle
that
with.
way.
I mean, it's like I see that where it's like the moving in silence. A lot of people do say that. And I feel like I definitely do move. I don't really post anything on social media or like interact with it in that regards. I just mainly use it to chat with friends and like look at funny
Yes.
videos. But I think that when I do think or envision about posting on social media, it's like it's not necessarily for revenge, but it's for that like that gratification of like, look, I am living the good life. And because I just got off from a vacation, and I feel like because I wasn't on my phone hardly at all like during it, and I genuinely feel happier when I'm not on technology, which I think makes it sadder that it's so prevalent in like school usage and like
Yes.
everything. And I've often like I've really admired the people because I only know one person in my life now who has a flip phone and
Oh, really?
does not use the internet. They have no cultural touchstone on when it comes to like memes or anything like that. But they're so happy. They're like so able to like regulate their feelings really well. And I've always toyed with the idea, but I eventually peel back because it's not like it doesn't seem feasible for like with how much constant connection other people want.
Yes.
And like the access to their time that they so desire out of you.
Now, are there any fears or concerns that you have about meeting like your own expectations that you mentioned in the beginning of others and like how they impact your mental health or decision making?
Yeah. I'm a very because as I was saying, I feel like I'm a very like self-motivated person, but the way my self-motivation works is that I've got to be on a roll.
Okay.
I have a very hard time, and so I've been trying to learn slowly to like get one challenge and then be grateful that I complete that one challenge and then like, take a couple months and then keep working at it like over time.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm very much like I need the momentum, like that constant 24/7, which is why I'm always checking my like my Canvas or like my work schedule or like something like that. And I feel like if I don't meet that expectation of like constant progress, I don't necessarily feel like I'm failing, but I feel like I'm falling behind like extensively. Um, and I think that obviously I know I have like an unhealthy relationship with that. Um, but there was like probably the first time that I actually went to receive mental help was when I was taking my Russian classes. And so I was trying to learn Russian on top of like also writing like a novel and then also
Okay.
like trying to like work out and then also like try to like maintain a social life and then also
Yeah.
try to, XYZ. And then I started getting mad at myself that I also wasn't learning French. And it seems so trivial and stupid that I would want to learn, like, want to know or like figure out how to do so many things in like a certain amount of time. But I think the expectation that social media does bring is that you do need to be proficient in all of these things at once. I think, especially with family, because it's again, I feel like my sort of like revenge fantasy is that because of my circumstances, I do come out successful. I do produce um, a line of kids. I want my kids to be able to be the rich kids at college, to not necessarily like look down in the other ways that like some of the richer kids do to like the people that I know, but just be able to raise people in stability. All right. Um, I think I do you have any other questions for me?
No, I think
I'm like flabbergasted you.
I think I was able to get a better understanding of how mental health, how social and cultural expectations affect um your mental well-being as like a college student.
Yeah.
I appreciate you opening up and sharing your thoughts and experience with me today. Um, in summary, you pointed out significant aspects such as academic success, pressure, family expectations, and social media influences. These challenges are clearly important and have a profound impact on students' mental well being in various ways. I value your honesty and effort you put into our conversations. Your valuable insight will greatly enhance my understanding on how social and cultural norms impact mental health. I trust that this conversation has been just as significant for you as it has been for me.
I don't even trust. No, know that it has. But I really appreciate you. You are a very wonderful influencer, and hello, professor, whoever else might be watching. Thank you guys so much.